everyone. May the 4th be with you. This is the 4th episode of the Jedi Way. I am one of your hosts, John Rocha, joined as always by the lovely Laura Kelly over there in Chicago. How are you, Laura?
Doing fabulous, John. How are you tonight?
I'm good. I like that shirt. I've never seen it. It looks like a football shirt, but it isn't a football shirt. What is that?
This is brand new. This is part of the Star Wars Celebration line that came out, and I browsed through. There really is not a ton of selection, unfortunately, this year from the Star Wars Celebration. That never happened, but all the 40th anniversary Empire stuff looked great. Blue's my color, makes my eyes pop a little bit, and thought I'd go for it. But yeah, I like how it turned out. It's a little big. Yeah. Tried to shrink it, didn't work, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's the thing about buying clothes online. You never like this one. This one I bought, and it was 100% cotton. I shrank it, but didn't shrink it quite enough. But yet the other size I think would have been too tight. So you live with what you get. You live with what you get. But I respect it, Rep and Leia. So I'm having a good time with that. Tonight or today on this show, we are going to discuss The Mandalorian season 1. We're going to discuss about what we think worked about it, why it resonated with the Star Wars audiences, and on the heels of that trailer being released last week. By the way, Laura and I did an impromptu conversation about the trailer on the Outlaw Nation channel, as well as like an 8-minute video I dropped on there. So if you want to hear her thoughts on the trailer, it's there. She also talked about it on the Force Toast pod, I'm sure, with your co-host there, and had a good time discussing it. And we're going to get into what we might expect to see in the season 2 of The Mandalorian, and what we want to see in season 2 of The Mandalorian. So, Laura, let's just start overall. I think we both rewatched either some episodes, or I rewatched the entire season, except for the Bill Burr episode. We watched the entire season and fell back in love with the show, and even caught things more a second time that I had probably missed the first time I was watching it, because there was so much happening in this show. What was it like for you to go back and revisit the show after all this time?
You know, it really has been a while since I sat and watched it, and I didn't get all the way through the first season again, but I got through the first 3 episodes. And I think the thing that struck me the most is just how strong the pilot is. I think that first episode is so good. And it draws you in and just connects you to all these characters instantly. And even despite the fact that the baby, which is come on, that's like the biggest thing that took the internet's heart by storm, which is hard to do. Yeah. But despite the fact that he's only in it for like a second at the end, that episode right out of the gate was a huge factor. As to why the show ended up being so great. But what struck me as odd was I didn't even realize how fast the second episode went. It's only 31 minutes long. Yeah. I'm like, we'll get into what we want to see in season 2, but I'm like, I need longer episodes than that, y'all. I need like a 45-minute, like consistent, like at least. I need more Mandalorian. Let's cut it with these 31-minute episodes.
Yeah, it's weird to think about, because when you look at the tail end of the show, the last episode is 49 minutes. I think the episode before that is 45 or 46 minutes. And this is such a long show, Laura, that like the end credits get exponentially longer as the season goes along, which is really fascinating to look at, because obviously there was a lot more involved with creating the episodes as they went, a lot more with the creatures, a lot more with the set design, the planets, all of that got to be a really extensive part. And we got to see some great art in those end credits. That was fantastic as well. But I'm with you. I wonder how they decide the length of episodes and what order they're going to put and what order size of episodes. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, we're going to do the first episode is going to be like 38 minutes, 40 minutes, but then the second episode will be 31, kind of get people a little bit of a taste of it. And then boom, we'll go with the longer episodes. I wonder if that's a logical choice as they're setting up the season, or if they just realize the story they have to tell can be told either 31, 35 pages, or it has to be 45, 50 pages. I don't know. But I agree with you. I think the longer episodes certainly work for this series and this show, because you get so much inside that 45, 46 minutes that you can consume and go over and think about and connect to other things that make it essential for you as you're watching it.
Absolutely. And I kind of think that if I had to guess, I would guess that it was, because it seems so random, all the run times of the different episodes, I'm sure it was just, oh, we don't need this extra side story. Let's just keep it all to the core story and go from there. But that was one of the things that they mentioned in the Entertainment Weekly breakdown of the first look at season 2. They talked about how the like universe is going to get bigger. We're going to start seeing like a bigger story, more so than, you know, what we saw in season 1 was so focused on Mando and the baby. And I'm excited for it to just expand a little bit, which kind of gives me faith that maybe the episodes will be a little bit longer. There's going to be more characters, more story to tell. So yeah, fingers crossed with with season 2 and runtimes.
Yeah, another reason I think it worked as well is it really kind of captured that original trilogy vibe so well, yet modernized it at the same time. So it made it feel like it was something you could totally watch happening nowadays. Yet, so in a way, it almost felt timeless in that way. It evoked that original trilogy, but also made it feel as if something you could see today. So I really appreciated that, the practical effects of it all, the species that were introduced, and also that score. My God, that score, when you're rewatching it a second time, really comes through to elevate the scenes and the overall storylines of what you're watching on screen.
It's a good point that it looks a lot like the original trilogy, and I really appreciate that. And the series itself, at least season 1, it felt so grounded, which I think a lot of people appreciated, especially original trilogy fans. There were, you know, a lot of earth tones in terms of the coloring of it, and the puppetry that they brought back, more so than some of the special effects. It was a lot more puppetry and practical effects, which was super refreshing. You know, weirdly enough, when kind of going through a second rewatch, like there really aren't any like space battles in this, and this is Star Wars, which is, I'm like, how did I didn't even notice the first time around. I didn't miss it either. And that's, you know, I don't watch Star Wars for the space battles. I enjoy them, but that's not why I'm in the story or into the overall story. So, but I think that was a big component for a lot of people was, you know, the sort of groundedness that we got from that sort of original trilogy, but also modernized, but also underworld, but also Old West feel. Like it was great.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I got in trouble for that tweet I sent, a year ago, I think, when I was like, I didn't add an extra word and then tried to defend it. It was so funny when I was trying to say, basically, people were just so defaulting into the Western aspect of it all. I was trying to fight for the samurai vibe of it as well, which, of course, harkens back to the original influence from George Lucas on these Star Wars movies, on the original trilogy movies, having that samurai influence from Akira Kurosawa. There was a lone wolf and cub vibe to this thing, as well as the Old West vibe that worked really well together in conjunction. I think also not seeing his face until the end really worked well. Pedro did fantastic work with the voice and evoking the emotional moments that are happening, and his journey with the child, quote unquote baby Yoda, throughout, you know, seeing this situation right off the bat. It was brilliant right off the bat, having him be in a bar fight where he is clearly outnumbered, but handles his business, and the brutality right off the bat. You get that guy getting cut in half by the door. So it shows you this is a show that's not going to necessarily be quote unquote Disneyfied by the people in charge of the studio. This is a show that's going to be allowed to have more of the darker edges of it that can exist and have existed in Star Wars since the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about the pilot, that, you know, that slicing in half moment in the pilot, like that was the first 3 minutes of episode 1. I noticed when I rewatched it, it was great. But, you know, we had 2 cantina scenes in the first 15 minutes of the first episode. It was, I mean, you're really going for those original trilogy vibes, I think. But I think in terms of like, they took a lot of risks, I think, with The Mandalorian. In terms of, I think a lot of that had to do with Dave Filoni. I mean, he had never directed live action before. He had never directed, you know, before Lucasfilm let him stake their reputation on their first live action series on like this untested director. I mean, that was such a huge risk. And, you know, obviously he's an amazing, you know, director of animation. He's an amazing artist. He's amazing, you know, showrunner and executive producer. But, you know, I liked that they were willing to do that, and to let him sort of learn and step into those shoes and really take the reins when it came to that first episode and that thing that really had to, you know, draw us all in from the word go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, having Jon Favreau running shotgun with you as you're doing your first feature film, live action directing really helps. I mean, having someone like that who's had success in multiple genres, with the films that he's made, being there as a consultant, being there as a partner in all of this, I'm sure helped. Plus the directors they did hire to direct some of the other episodes throughout the season also, I'm sure, had great conversations with Dave Filoni, and any questions he might have had or any questions he may have needed to have answered, they were probably available to walk him through. And, we saw in the Disney Plus behind the scenes series that they did, to see them all sitting around a table, talking about all the directors. You can only you can only imagine they must have done that numerous times. This idea of collaboration. It's so fun to see. I mean, Marvel talked about it too. The Russo brothers talked how they spoke to every director of those singular franchises like Thor, Captain America, whatever, Black Panther. Like, what do you want to see? What do your characters do here? What would you like to see that evokes what you've created? So you like that it's less ego driven and it's more about, okay, what's the overall goal here? Let's all work together to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the only thing better than Filoni is the combination of Favreau and Filoni. It was great. You have Favreau's eye and his, and his wit and his writing combined with Filoni's knack for creating compelling characters.
Yeah.
He's unmatched in his knowledge of the Star Wars universe. So it worked out really well. And, obviously it was a huge collaborative effort. And I think, the Disney Gallery series did a really great job of letting us get to see that. It was really cool. It was kind of this education in how to make a TV show that is awesome.
What else do you think worked about this first season that kind of solidified itself with the fans?
Well, I talked about Baby Yoda, and if you had told me, I think at the beginning of the show or at the launch, that the whole thing was going to revolve around a child, which I guess we kind of knew that there were some leaks that came out leading up to the premiere that this child was going to be the MacGuffin. But I would have assumed with that knowledge that, I was probably not going to enjoy the show. I'm like, I don't need to watch a show about a kid. I'm not like Luke was 19 in the original trilogy. He acted like he was like 12. I don't need any more of that. Like I just, but then, that surprise of those big eyes are really what does it. I mean, look, it's the BB-8 eyes, but he's got two of them. So it's fantastic. Baby Yoda's too, and it's great. And it's an amazing use of, of puppetry. And it's great because we didn't get to see a ton of that in, other trilogies in the Star Wars universe. But, I love that they threw back to that and really weren't afraid to push that forward and to make sure that, it added weight and a groundedness to any scene that he was in, that you could kind of tell that the thing has weight to it. And it added a little bit of something extra to the show, just extra motivation for the characters. And it was just great. It's breathtaking. I love him.
Yeah, fair. I love him too. And the consistency of Mando throughout was a good foundation for the show, for all these other characters to have their arcs or have their journeys as well. And Baby Yoda being one of them. I mean, Mando is for the most part himself through the whole series, and we get flashbacks of what his experience was and why has the issues that he does with droids, why he's got such an overprotective or such a need to protect the child, aka Baby Yoda, because he was a foundling and because a Mandalorian saved him. So there's emotional connections throughout that are happening for him. There are surprises for Mando as he goes along. But, he's got his code. He's got his way of doing things. He is who he is. And he's on these series of adventures throughout this series. But when you talk about the child, Baby Yoda, like you said, we're introduced to him in essence, a floating cradle. All right, where do we go next? Well, that's the mystery of him, is we don't know whether he's good or bad. And rewatching the entire series, having him choking out Cara Dune simply over an arm wrestling match was so interesting when you juxtapose it to the fact that he saw Cara and Mando fighting outside that bar and pull blasters on each other, yet he did nothing about that. But somehow an arm wrestling situation causes him to choke. So the fact that he's choking it's very very Darth Vader-ish. So I just found that to be interesting as I was rewatching it, because there's a lot of mystery around Baby Yoda that they kept going throughout the series that I thought was really good. He's healing Carl Weathers' character after he's been attacked by those flying pterodactyl type creatures. And then he's trying to get involved, and then he stops the fire, but yet he tries to choke out Cara Dune. So what's this all about? I don't know.
I love that comparison to Vader. I never would have thought to compare Baby Yoda to Vader
like this.
It's so great. And he's just fantastic. And I think I mentioned this when I was on Outlaw Nation, but when it comes to Mandalorian, you're totally right. He's completely consistent. he sticks to his code. But I also love that he has some of these, he's got this willingness to ask for help, to not be afraid to ask for help that I love. And he's not like perfect in every way. I mean, we got to see live action Blurgs, another thing I never would have thought that I needed or wanted in Star Wars, but I did need it and I loved it. But we got to see, we see him falling off and not immediately taking to something just by instinct. We have to kind of watch him learn and go through these things and go through some hardships every now and then, which is nice and kind of refreshing for our main character. Yeah. But I think when it comes to Baby Yoda, I mean, the character really breathed new life into this franchise that is obsessed with echoing and rhyming with its predecessors, which is fine. But I think we needed this. I think Star Wars needed this, and Star Wars fans just needed something new. Yeah. And so that was really, it shouldn't be a surprise with that perspective that it just became the phenomenon that it did, and taking over the internet. But it was, I think that's one of the best things about the result of the Mandalorian season 1 was that new energy that it brought to Star Wars.
Yeah, new energy by evoking the old energy in a new way. And I think this was the Star Wars that we were hoping to get in this sequel trilogy. We were hoping to get this kind of Star Wars because both trilogies have a darkness to both of them. But in my opinion, in the sequel trilogy, you don't really sense that darkness as strongly as you would like to feel throughout a trilogy, like a Star Wars trilogy. And so that's the frustrating part, I think, when you look at the sequel trilogy. And then you look compared to Mandalorian. Mandalorian is pretty much universally beloved, right? The sequel trilogy is not. And I think not being able to understand how to do what they need to do to bring people back to Star Wars and have them leaving that sequel trilogy with hope and inspiration and looking forward to seeing what the next trilogy is all about is sadly a failing of the sequel trilogy and of this regime with that particular trilogy.
Yeah, and I think one of the main differences that we see with The Mandalorian is that we've got a really good balance of fan service, service to the hardcore fans, without alienating new viewers. I think that's one of the biggest strengths of the series. I mean, I've talked about this before. My sister's not a Star Wars fan. She just wants to sit and watch The Mandalorian so she can see Baby Yoda, which is totally understandable and completely acceptable in this house. But the fact that, that she can sit and watch the show and get some entertainment value out of it, sitting next to me, who's a hardcore fan, who's looking for all of the little Easter eggs and enjoying the things like, oh my God, there are blurgs in animation and now I'm seeing one in live action. And oh my God, there's the Darksaber. I remember going to work the day after the series finale or the season finale and being worried that my coworkers that were really into The Mandalorian were going to be confused by the Darksaber, and I was going to spend the whole day explaining the history of it. So naturally I sat at home and prepared ahead of time my essay. But but it was one of those things where I walked in and they were just.
This is the Darksaber.
Exactly. Let's go back to square one before the Clone Wars. But it was one of those things where I asked about them and I was like, that kind of struck me as one of those things where they've done a really good job the whole season of not alienating casual fans. But then did that feel like it was alienating because you didn't know what that was? And they're like, no, I just thought it was a cool sword. And I was like, oh, well, okay. That's cool.
That's enough. That's all you need. And
exactly.
You've got once again, the idea of mystery, right? And it's smart at the end for a majority of the people who aren't, who haven't seen Star Wars Rebels or don't know Bo-Katan or the Mandalorian connection, all of that, for them, it's just like, oh, this is a cool ass sword. What does this mean? So you get that mystery going into season 2 for them. And I'm sure there'll be stuff that's explained about the lore and the history of that saber a little more in depth when we get into the second season, for sure. I think another one of the things that I enjoyed about this, and you mentioned this earlier, how they did a nice combo of old and new, bringing in IG-11, which everyone, people love IG-88. People love the idea of these hunter droids, and IG-11 being brought in. Taika Waititi voicing the IG-11 unit in the first episode. Was pretty awesome. And then having him come back later on in the series and be someone that cares for Baby Yoda was a nice twist in this show as well. You have these, and there are places for humor with this droid that work as well. The humor with the stormtroopers. There is just the perfect amount of humor that you would need to have in a situation like this or in a life like this that they're living in this series that I think really works well to balance out the overall darkness or dread or stuff that they have to do that they're not happy about, or the danger of the missions that they're on. There's enough of that humor, that standard Star Wars humor, that works well.
Agreed. I was thinking the same thing when I was rewatching episode 2 tonight, that I've never been so delighted by Jawas. I mean, they were just like, they were so funny. And I've never had that reaction before where they're just like screeching about the egg. And I don't know, something about it just struck me as so delightful. I was giggling on the couch while I was watching it. But I think you're totally right, that the humor that sort of balances out the darkness. We've got, the really intense details that are going to be pleasing to like the hardcore fans. It's such a well-balanced show. And I just am really, 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 really hoping that in season 2 that they can keep that momentum going and, season 2 and beyond. But I think I'm a little bit worried about some of the rumors that we've heard, particularly the casting rumors and characters that we're going to be seeing. I'm like, okay, well, I'm excited about this, but is this going to mean anything to a casual fan? And how are they going to make the casual fans care?
Right. You mean the Ahsoka Tano rumors? And
and Bo-Katan. Yeah. I mean, the Cobb Vanth thing is like, that's the
Cobb
most...
Vanth is way inside baseball. Right.
That's a deep cut. I mean, I think that's the Aftermath trilogy. And so, I mean, that's a much deeper cut than I think even, there are some hardcore fans that probably didn't know what that was because, to be honest, the Aftermath trilogy was a little hard to get through for some people, which is understandable. But I think it's going to be interesting, but I have a lot of faith that they're going to pull it off. I mean, they have this like collaborative environment of all the directors working together, making sure everyone was on the same page. You've got the mixture of Dave Filoni in there, making sure that everyone is, that everything is staying hopefully consistent with canon. That seems to be what he was doing, partially what he was doing in season 1. So fingers crossed that they can keep that going despite some of these rumors that we've heard. I don't know. I'm a little bit worried.
Yeah. Well, what is it that you're worried about the most going into? Well, wait, one last thing. Let's finish up talking about what we think worked on Mandalorian. We'll get into what we see happening, what we worry about maybe seeing happening in season 2. The characters that were introduced, we should spend a little bit of time. Obviously, the Moff Gideon character, Giancarlo Esposito, really great way to introduce him, and having Werner Herzog. I mean, Werner Herzog is one of the greatest voices ever on film. I love watching his documentaries just to hear his narration, and bounty hunting is a difficult business. Like those kinds of things, they really add a life and a character to this series. And then you have Nick Nolte's character as well, Queel. Queel's character is so, like, you're immediately in love with him. And once again, they made him look a little bit like a Nick Nolte at this stage of his life. But hearing his voice coming out of that body, hearing his approach to things, I have spoken being one of those phrases that people now will remember or use. And then, of course, Grief Karga with Carl Weathers, which I mentioned earlier, certainly a good character and someone that kind of came around thanks to an attack. But Cara Dune, I mean, we'd be remiss not to mention her. I mean, she's in essentially the Seven Samurai episode that Bryce Dallas Howard directs, and she acquits herself well for the most part. Gina Carano, not known for being a great actress, but acquits herself well, then comes back again. And rewatching those last 2 episodes where she's involved in this battle situation, there is some really good acting going on here, some nuanced acting going on from her that kind of surprised me as well. And she's become a character that a lot of people like, regardless of some of the stuff she's saying on her social media, you can like it or not like it. She's a character that people enjoy. So I wonder what you feel about how they built her up, and Queel and all these other characters that I just mentioned.
I mean, Queel is great. I think it was kind of risky that they were like, all right, we're going to have the Mandalorians be like, this is the way, and that's going to be their catchphrase. We're going to use it over and over again. And then to add like another character that has like these catchphrases, I'm like, I would have been so worried that it would just like, is it tired? Is it overdone? Do we really need to do this again? But it worked. It totally worked because it totally worked for the character. And yeah, that was one of the things that I thought was so interesting about the behind the scenes in the Disney Gallery series is they talked with the actress that was actually doing the I don't remember what it's called now. It's not puppetry work, but she was basically in the costume, the creature work that she was doing. And, you know, having to like mouth the words that she didn't know what it was going to end up sounding like in the end. It was crazy, but the character ended up being really cool. I probably should have seen it coming that he wasn't going to make it out of season 1 alive. Oh. I think that would have been, I guess in retrospect, I was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense actually. But man, that still hurt. That still hurt watching him go down.
Rewatching it a second time, I totally forgotten that he gets, because I mean, you know, I just forgot. And so I almost texted you like, wait, Queel dies. I forgot Queel dies. And it was just that moment of like, oh man. And it's those two idiots who are, that are voiced by Jason Sudeikis. And I can't remember the other actor who voices the other Stormtrooper. Like, you're like, these two lunkheads killed Queel. And that's another element of this series or this season, I guess, that was great was, that's how life is sometimes. Two idiots might kill you. It's just how crazy the world actually is. There is no clear-cut, good and evil. There is a happenstance and circumstance that can cause the death of a beloved character by a couple of stormtroopers, nondescript stormtroopers, you know?
Yep. Sometimes Jason Sudeikis is the one that takes you down. How life is, I suppose. But when it comes to Cara Dune, I think like if I'm having a really hard time separating the actor from the character. So at this point, I'm kind of just like, just do it. Like, wow. I mean, come on. I just don't want people are. I'm going to get shit for this. I don't want it in my Star Wars. I just don't. And she's this incredibly strong character. She brought this like incredible like oomph to season 1. That was so cool to see in a female character. And now I'm just kind of like, God, it just sours it so much that this is where we're at. So I'll be curious to see where it goes. I was actually kind of relieved when the season 2 trailer came out and she was only in like one shot. I was like, sucks. Part of me and the Geek Buddies thought I was crazy, but I was like, they could have gone back and re-edited this thing after the situation. I thought that.
Right. But they were like, no, these corporations, they spend time building this. But I'm like, I wouldn't put it past them going to the editor and go, because a good editor, if it's already pre-cut, can make changes. It's about getting the final cut that takes the long time, but making adjustments takes way less time. So any editor worth their salt, I'm sure, could have gone back in and re-edited some certain sequences or certain pieces or extended certain action sequences out or threw in stuff that they had gotten rid of because it didn't fit in the overall trailer as it was originally constructed, and then brought that stuff back in to cut out more of Cara Dune. I don't know, but it's a possibility.
I had that same theory. I'm on your team with this one, John. I thought the same thing. I was like, oh, there's no way that the original trailer only had one shot of her. They cut it all out.
She was so all funny. Over the EW pictures, right? So it would be surprising that they wouldn't include her more in the trailer. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate your strong stance. Lord knows I tweeted out a strong stance about it as well myself. And resulted in Pedro Pascal following, which is the biggest shock, one of the biggest shocks of my life. So I don't know how you take that. Was he supporting me? And then does he have an issue with what Carano was doing? I don't know. We'll find out, because already there were rumors from Giancarlo Esposito's mouth, actually, not rumors, but from his mouth. He said that season 3 or 4 are already kind of semi-planned and underway mentally, and it will blow away whatever we're going to see in season 2. So that gets us excited. I think. But before we go into season 3 and season 4 in our minds, let's focus on what we might be excited to see or what we're worried to see in season 2. Please, Laura, what's your take on all that?
All right. So everything that I said earlier about my concern about Ahsoka and Bo-Katan, these characters in the animation showing up, put that aside for a second.
Okay.
Because when it comes to Star Wars, I am here for literally any Star Wars Rebels reference. So if you want to bring Bo-Katan and Ahsoka Tano into this series, like, yes, I have concerns about that, but like, I am here for it. Let me just say that. So, even a mention of them, if somebody just mentions them by name, or if they like walk by in the background, or if there's like a VCX 100, you see the ghost, people are like, oh my God, is it the ghost? That kind of stuff is the stuff I live for when it comes to Star Wars and trying to find all the Easter eggs. So if you can work a Star Wars Rebels reference in there somewhere, you have won me over. It takes very little.
What do you want to see with this Jedi Mandalore situation? Do you think he's taking, Yoda back, because he says you got to take him back to to his kind. Is he taking baby Yoda or the child back to the Yoda people or back to the Jedi? Because they mentioned the sorcerers and all of this. And even rewatching the first season again, the armorer says that the Jedi were an enemy of Mandalore, but this particular creature, being the baby Yoda, the child, is not. So
Yeah.
what does that mean?
So I don't think that we're gonna that goal. I understand that is Din Djarin's ultimate goal, is to get this creature back to its people, be it its own species or be it the Jedi. I don't think we're gonna see that in season 2. I think, we got that Entertainment Weekly article about how the universe and the story is going to be a lot bigger, and I think we're going to get distracted. There's going to be something else that comes up, and I think that goal is kind of it's going to get pushed to the side, because we can't wrap the story up in season 2. They've got to do at least 2 more seasons of this show, so I think that's going to come later. I don't think we're going to make it quite that far. I think that I have theories about this the shady woman with the hood over her head with Sasha Banks. I have some ideas of what that could be, and we talked about it a little bit on Force Toast, and Alice had some good theories too, but I'm kind of leaning towards not good side Force user. I'm kind of hoping that we get a little bit of dark side Force worked into the story. We talked a little bit about working in the Night Sisters from the Clone Wars, and kind of bringing in this dark magic component of the Force into the Mandalorian and seeing how that plays out. I just think it'd be kind of fun.
I want to look at the image again of her, because we can see you can see the hair. You can see, well, actually, no, you can't. You can see a little bit of the hair, but it's mostly the hood and everything covering her. What were some of the theories out? Because in my mind, when I first saw her, I thought she was a Twi'lek. I thought that the hood was covering her ears and what have you. But of course, her color is not green. So, but that doesn't necessarily matter.
Yeah, the Twi'leks can be all different. I mean, they come in lots of shades. But I didn't notice that. I was struck as human at first. My instinct wasn't anything other than that. But you could be right. Maybe I just didn't notice. But I feel like the Twi'leks have their heads are bigger. I don't know. Right. There's more back there.
I thought the hood was covering it up, so I don't know. I mean, that's something. But I'm wide open to whatever it may be. She's the armor is mentioning the Jedi when she shows up, and then of course disappears in the trailer. So that's interesting too. The Night Sisters and more of a darker edge to her, maybe her being a villain, because a lot of people think she might be Sabine Wren, but Sabine doesn't really have that look or that appearance. But then again, did Sabine at the end of Rebels, is Sabine wearing a hood or a dark cloak or anything like that? I can't remember.
She isn't. Her hair is purple by the end of it. It's a short little pixie cut. But yeah, I thought that was an unusual theory. I mean, I talked about this on Force Toast too, but Star Wars Rebels made a concentrated effort to code Sabine as Asian and cast her family members, her mom, dad, and brother, as Asian. They casted Asian actors to voice them, which I thought was it was a cool effort that they didn't have to, it's all behind the scenes. We don't see it. Most people wouldn't have known, but they made an effort to do that. I don't think that they're going to suddenly throw all that away and cast an actress who is half black and half white to play Sabine, who was Asian. It just doesn't strike me as being a thing that the person, when you've got Dave Filoni running things and he made that effort on Star Wars Rebels in animation, it doesn't connect for me at all. I don't think that that's going to be the case at all.
Okay.
I'm thinking new character.
Okay. There have been rumors that she might be connected to Cara Dune. I think we're gonna get more about Cara Dune in this second season than maybe we anticipated or thought. There's a backstory to her, just the way she treated Queel and was kind of derogatory towards him initially. And then Yoda, force pinching, baby Yoda, is there an evil here behind the scenes that we don't know about? I don't know. I mean, that could
certainly be a darkness. The fact that she was this drop soldier, practically, it sounds like maybe a little bit of an assassin type of character for the rebellion. And then the fact that she was from Alderaan, I think that was a huge character reveal. for her in the finale. So I would be curious to see where that plays out too. But yeah, I hadn't thought of any kind of connection to Cara Dune. Like maybe there are maybe this character's from Alderaan too. And there's a connection there.
Maybe Cara helped whatever happened. I'm just saying, we know what happens with Alderaan way back when, and this takes place right after Return of the Jedi. So the series does. So is there a connection with Cara Dune to Alderaan, to selling out her people in some way that has a long history? I don't know. Did she become a drop soldier? How did that happen? Did she, kind of convert to the other side? All of that. I want to see more. I mean, I agree with you that it's troublesome to have her be a part of it and play the character now. Some of the comments that she's made, and we wonder how that's going to play out. But let's move off that and move into what we're going to see from the Mandalorian. What do you think? Are we going to get more? I mean, we got that really solid backstory in the first season. Do you think we'll have more about his backstory, more about his upbringing with the Mandalorian people and his convergence into becoming a Mandalorian himself?
I think that's definitely in the cards. If it's not happening in this season, probably in like season 3, maybe we'll circle back to that to be like, oh yeah, remember those flashbacks to the Clone Wars? That was cool. I would love to know more about that because, him and his whole family in those early scenes, they're wearing these like dark red robes, all of them. And they've got these sort of like weird leather symbols on them. And I just wonder, I'm like, were they like cultists of some type? Is there something like weirdly like nefarious there happening? Like that he then was kind of weirdly saved from when the war broke out on whatever planet they were on. I would love to know more. Like we got to see a lot, but we didn't get a lot of exposition about what was actually happening in those scenes. And then, obviously I would love to see more about, what was his upbringing like as a foundling in the Mandalorian culture that he grew up in, which was obviously a very orthodox upbringing, given that he's got this whole code of not ever taking off the helmet.
Right.
So I would be curious to see kind of how it compares. And if he does end up running into Sabine Wren at some point in Bo-Katan, and they obviously are not as orthodox as he is, because we see those helmets on and off all the time.
Right.
That'll certainly be an interesting interaction. I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, because it could be just as simple as, wait, you guys do this? You guys are cool with this all the time? Oh, I didn't know it could be. I thought it was a thing, and I think we're going to get the armorer back as well. There's a lot of rumors that because didn't Bo-Katan become the armorer? Am I correct on that, or am I off on that one?
Not that I know of. I mean, I don't know what happened to Bo-Katan after Rebels. So if there's stories out there I don't know of, maybe that's the case. But the armorer was one of my favorite characters from season 1. So I was a little bit worried that she wouldn't be back, because I'm just like, well, what happened to her on whatever planet that they were all on, that they all then had to evacuate, their whole group that was underground. But I would love to see her come back, because I just thought she was great. I love that she narrated part of the season 2 trailer. I think that gives me a little bit of hope that we'll see her back in the show. But I just thought, I was rewatching the episode tonight where he was getting his armor forged, and I was just like, God, that character's such a badass. I want to know more.
Emily Swallow does a great job voicing her over, and whoever else is in the outfit, and maybe it is her, I don't know, did a great job as well. She's just a strong kind of maternal figure. She's almost like the Queen Mother for the aliens. You know what I'm saying? She's out there like making sure all these Mandalorians getting involved and whatever. She's the one that stops the fight that is about to pop off there with Mando and all the other Mandalorians that are under there, because they're mad about what happened there and how they got exposed. So there's more here to explore, certainly within the Mandalorians too, as well with him. So I don't know, just because there's bounty hunting stuff, so who knows how that's going to go as well. I think another thing that I'm looking forward to is we're going back to Tatooine. So it seems like from seeing the Tusken Raiders, are we going back to Tatooine? What are we going to see there? Who are we going to run into there? A lot of rumors about possibly Kenobi, a Kenobi sighting or anything like that, or even a young Luke sighting. Would that throw you out of the series? Would that throw you out of the show? Would that feel like crossing that line to too much fan service? Or do you trust the show at this point to get that right and make it play well within what they've already constructed?
Well, unless they're flashing back, I don't know if Luke and Kenobi would.
What am I talking about? Tatooine. So what they're going to do in Tatooine, what do you think will be there that they're returning to Tatooine for?
And I don't know if I hope it or if I think that it's going to happen, but I would really love to see Ming-Na Wen return
Oh,
as
yes.
her character as Fennec Shand. I would love it to, come out that, oh, she didn't actually die, or like somebody revived her somehow. I don't know. Just bring her back. She was a cool character, and it would just be nice to see her back. And if that was the reason that they were going back to Tatooine, like, you've won me over, because I'm a little bit sick of the desert, dusty planets. I think I would, my preference is something a little more green and lush and pretty to look at. But if we're gonna go back, like, give me a really good motivation. And if you're gonna bring if we're gonna bring her character back in, like, that's good enough for me.
Yeah. The directors we're getting here for season 2, Laura Kelly, Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni again, Bryce Dallas Howard again, Rick Famuyiwa again, Carl Weathers directing his episode, Peyton Reed directing episode, and Robert Rodriguez as well. This is a nice, interesting, eclectic group of directors here. Does this excite you as well?
Yeah. Was Bryce Dallas Howard in that list? Is she coming back?
Yes,
or
Bryce Dallas Howard. Well, yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm excited for her to come back, because I feel bad for her, because I feel like that episode that she directed got a lot of hate. And I think that sucks, because I really liked that episode. And I like that it was kind of it was a weirdly different feel. I can't really explain how. It just felt different, and I really liked it. And I kind of wish that, I feel like people were kind of like, oh, I feel like it kind of stopped the story. We had to like step off and do this little side story. But I'm hoping maybe that she gets something different handed to her this time to work with, and that, I don't know, that we just get different feedback from fans, because I think she's enormously talented. It's really exciting. It was really exciting to get to see, her talking about it on the Disney Gallery series. Like, she was so into it, and you could tell she just had such a love for it. So I just want to see her come back and be able to do more of that and become more involved with the whole world. That's appealing to me. So fingers crossed that, we get to see something different, I guess, from her.
Yeah. Chapter 4, Sanctuary. That's the one she directed. Man, I'm trying to find the runtime. Yeah, 41 minutes on that one. It's a tough thing to tell the Seven Samurai story in 41 minutes. Yeah, you only had 2 samurai this time around, but still, it's a tough thing to tell that story and make it concise. I think that's why some fans had a little bit of hate on it, because it seemed like they rushed the story into a 41-minute thing. It was very difficult to do, and overall felt like, it took the time out. But you were laying the groundwork, A, of introducing Cara Dune, and B, of introducing the fact that he doesn't take the helmet off for anybody, and the possibility of how he's an old gunslinger that does at times get tempted to want to put down the gun and settle down and live a regular life and what have you. Even Cara Dune calls him out at the end of the episode rather, and says, like, sipping botchka or whatever it is that she's sipping, and, watching your kids play with Baby Yoda or whatever. Like, this is how I would be hard pressed to resist something like that. But, he's like, this is not the place for me. So there's stuff you had to lay the groundwork of that within the Mandalorian. So I thought it was effective in doing that. I do understand why people had an issue with it, because it seems the most Disney version, a Disney episode of the series. But then you're trying to accomplish certain things in that episode. And I get your point about Bryce Dallas being unfairly vilified for that episode a little bit.
Yeah, but the overall list of directors that we have for season 2 is really exciting. Has Carl Weathers directed before? Do we know anything about his history?
To be honest, I don't know. I'm gonna look it up real quick as we're talking. I'm looking up on IMDb. I don't know if he's ever directed, and I wonder if he's reaching out to his old pal Sylvester Stallone for some advice on directing. I don't know. So let's see here. Actually, he's directed 1 episode of Hawaii Five-0 from the new series, a couple of shorts, something called For the People, a series Sheena, 18 Wheels of Justice, an episode of Strong Medicine, 2 episodes of Pensacola Wings of Gold, and 8 episodes of Silk Stockings. Hello. So sure, he has some TV directing credit there, Laura Kelly.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited to see what he can do. I wonder now, like, I think back to like what it must have been like when they were filming with him, if he was like on the sides, like behind the camera, like talking to the directors, and and maybe that's why they were like, hey, this guy actually like knows some stuff. Like, maybe we get him back here too. So I'm excited to see how his episode plays out. I think Jon Favreau is directing episode 1 of season 2, and he did not direct at all in season 1, which is kind of strange. So I'm excited to see what he brings to the table. Obviously, he's got lots of directing credits to his name.
Yes. Well, Taika Waititi directing that last episode of season 1. That was great,
yes.
And so I don't. Is he on the list? I don't think he's on the list.
No, I don't think he is, because I think the idea was that he was going to be busy working on his own Star Wars film. He's going to be writing, co-writing and directing a Star Wars film of his own, which would be fun to see.
Yeah, it's a shame to miss him though, because I thought he was such a great part of season 1, and so
he was.
Having him be in here will be missed, but I'm sure there's an incredible amount of talent that's coming in for this season 2 to direct these series. All right, one last question: do you want a love story for Mando, or is this not the kind of character that would have a love story? Because you mentioned the Bryce Dallas Howard episode. That's a hint of that. And certainly, there's nothing here between him and Cara Dune. They're fellow warriors. Would you want to see that, or do you think that would kind of take you out of it as well?
Gosh, it's one of those things where when I was watching the episode 4, it didn't take me out of it at all. I thought it was kind of sweet, and I really enjoyed the chemistry that he and that character had. So I don't know if it would take me out of it. I have a feeling it's not going to happen in this season.
Okay.
Like, it might be interesting if they're going to end it after 4 seasons, maybe like in the end of towards the end of season 4, he makes his way back to whatever planet that was and pulls up a seat for a cup of spotchka or whatever, and and meets up with that character again. That'd be really cool. And then takes off his helmet, and then she can see his face, and she'll just turn around and just be like, go away.
Yeah. Right. It could be something like that.
Right.
What about Ilum? Any thoughts? Do you think it'll be that?
That's what I thought. I know that was a common theory. That was my first instinct too, would be that this is a snow planet maybe that we've been to before, but not really. And or at least not much in live action, unless you count Starkiller Base, which you really can't. It was so transformed by that point. We didn't get to see the caves. Yeah. So it would be really cool, I think, if they brought that into live action as well. I know that those are Alice's favorite, that one of her favorite arcs in the Clone Wars was going to Ilum with the younglings.
I think for me, I want to see where they go with the politics of the show. And by that, I mean this is 5 years after the rebellion supposedly won, and the beginning of the New Republic. Is the First Order now slowly starting to lay its groundwork that we're going to see later on? Will we see some people? Will he run into people? Will he begin that are first order people who are just having a conversation about the possibility of running into former Empire people who are having a conversation about reconstructing that in a different format? Do you think the show will veer into that political side of things, or just keep it mostly, adventure of the week, or with an overall adventure arc throughout the season?
It's hard to say. And I think that one of the things that was really kind of appealing about season 1 is that we really kind of are out in the boondocks when it comes to the actual galaxy. We're not anywhere near the core. The New Republic doesn't really exist wherever they are in the outer rims. I'm assuming the outer rims. So I think that was kind of the appeal, was that there wasn't any governing body, that it had this kind of crazy Wild West feel to it, every planet that we went to. So I kind of think that they would probably stick with that, but they're going to have to expand eventually and go to different planets. So who knows? Maybe he'll end up back there closer to the inner core, and get involved in that at some point. But my instinct is no, that they're going to kind of stick with the sort of vibe that they established in season 1 and roll with it. Well,
they keep saying they're going to make it bigger. Bigger doesn't necessarily mean going into other planets. Bigger can also mean expanding the scope of the story to include what's always been included in all these Star Wars shows or series, is the idea of the inner workings of the politics of what's happening with the people in charge versus the people who are fighting back, the resistance. So, maybe we'll get shades of it. And maybe just because they're in the outer rim or wherever, it doesn't mean that those people from the Empire didn't go out to the outer rim to get away from everything, to kind of germinate this idea of, or nurture this idea of what they would do next, and then go back to the inner core. So I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there, but I'd like to see a little bit of that in season 2. Because I don't want this to turn into Kung Fu, where it's an adventure every week, and then we just kind of, what's this week's adventure? I want a bigger story. And if he's talking about making a bigger story, then that's Game of Thrones-esque, which is what he's compared it to. a lot of Game of Thrones was about getting to that throne, which is politics. So a lot of things we love about Game of Thrones was about the inner workings and the machinations of some of these people within working their political power to get into a position to become the person who sits on the Iron Throne. So I wonder, I'm just throwing it out there.
Exactly. And I think that, some of the political intrigue was sort of an appealing component of the prequels for a lot of fans. So I think that, bringing that piece of the puzzle into it could make things really interesting. And you make a good point. They want to expand the story and make everything bigger. And I kind of forgot about that Game of Thrones comparison because many of us who watch season 8 kind of want to forget about it. But I think it'll be, I have a ton of faith in, the group of directors that they're working with. And I have a ton of faith in the foundation that they built in season 1. I think it's going to be good. I'm really just hoping that they don't do too much of the, let's appeal to the hardcore fans with these weird, obscure things. Right. We got to keep it honest, keep it balanced. That's my hope. I would honestly I would get a little bit of satisfaction out of it if Ahsoka Tano actually did not appear in the season at all. If all of those rumors were just running wild for months, I wouldn't be surprised if, I would also find it hilarious if none of it panned out. Right.
If Sabina's Hera, would you be happy with that? Would you sorry, not Sabina, Sasha Banks. If she's Hera, would that be not something you want to see either?
That doesn't make any sense. Hera's green. It doesn't work. It's not it. Although it would be cool if they brought, I feel like Vanessa Marshall would be, the voice actress would be perfect to cast in that, I don't know how old she is or how old off the top of my head Hera's supposed to be in that phase, but I feel like it's got to be somewhat close.
yeah, fair point. All right, well, I think we should wrap up there about 50 minutes. Laura, I think we've done a good conversation here about Mandalorian season 1 and what we expect to see from Mandalorian season 2. I hope you enjoy the conversation yourself. For those of you who are watching or listening to us, if you're watching us on the YouTube channel, please leave a comment down below. What do you think about what worked for season 1, why it worked so well, and if we missed anything, let us know down there about why you thought it worked so well. And then let us know what you're hoping to see in season 2 or what you're hoping you don't see in season 2 that'll help you to enjoy the show even more. All of that down there in the comments. The more comments you leave, the more likes you leave on this video. That's another thing. Please hit that thumbs up button, give it a like. We want to get as many likes and as many comments as possible underneath, because that elevates the show in the algorithm of YouTube, and more people will come on the Jedi Way train and watch this, or the Jedi Way ship rather, and watch the show and share it with other people. Laura, where can thank you so much, Laura. It's been another great episode. Where can they find you and everything you got going on?
It has been great. I am at shutup_Laura on Twitter and on Instagram. You can find my podcast, Force Toast, a Star Wars happy hour, on Twitter. That's at Force Toast Pod. And our website is forcetoastpod.com if you want to find out where to listen to us.
There you go. Definitely follow all that and listen to their podcast. It's a fun listen. And Laura cusses on that one, so you'll get the full Laura Kelly experience on that podcast. So
yes, she does. Where can everyone find you, John?
You can always find me. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, I'm running out of. I've been recording 6 shows today. You can find me at the Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram. Of course, on this YouTube channel. Subscribe to this channel down below, please. All the subscribers, trying to march towards 15,000 subscribers, then eventually that 20,000 subscribers mark. So give the show some love, give the channel some love by subscribing down below as well, and see all the things I got going on if you follow me on social media. All right, I think that's it. We're gonna head on out of here. And Laura, what do we leave them with?
Until next time, foundlings, remember, your focus determines your reality.
There it is. Take care, everybody.